concept and summary for economic principles, week 5. During this week, we review labor markets, income, and poverty. As we know, the labor market is the term that economists use for all different markets for labor. There is no single labor market. Instead, there is a different market of every other kind of labor. This week, key terms are a theory of labor markets when examining poverty and inequality. And I think these are such important to understand because that affects many, or if not all, at least most of the economic organizations and industries. So let's start. As we know, a firm demands labor because of the value of the labor's marginal productivity. For a firm operating in a perfectly competitive output market, this will be the value of the marginal product, which we define as the marginal product of labor multiplied by the firm's output price. For a firm which is not perfectly competitive, the appropriate concept is the marginal revenue product, which we define as the marginal product of labor multiplied by the firm's marginal revenue. Profit maximizing firms employ labor up to the point where the market wage is equal to the firm's demand for labor. In a competitive labor market, we determine market wage through the interaction between the market supply and the demand for labor. Another important matter on this week's is employment discrimination. Basically, employment discrimination occurs in a labor market when employers pay workers with the same economic characteristics, such as education, experience, and skill level, and pay them differently because of race, gender, religion, age, or disability status. In the United States, female workers on average earn less than male workers, and black workers on average earn less than white workers. There is a controversy over to which discriminations difference in factors like education and job experience can explain these earning gaps. But it's important to see that free markets can allow discriminations to occur, but the threat of a loss of sales or a loss of productive workers can also create incentives for a firm not to discriminate. In the current market, for example, with shortages of talent, then discrimination is less likely to occur. A range of public policies also can be used to reduce earning gaps between men and women or between white and other racial ethnic groups, but by requiring legally to equal pay for equal work and also attaining more equal educational outcomes. So employment discrimination is an important issue that when you're analyzing your cases is not only from the economic point of view, but also from the ethical point of view. As we have learned during this week, the recent level of youth immigration is at a historically high level if we measure it in absolute numbers, but not if we measure it as a share of population. The overall gains to the US economy from immigration are real, but let's say relatively small. However, immigration also causes effects like slightly lower wages for low-skilled workers and budget problems for certain state and local governments because they have to accommodate these agents within their labor market. Also, we have learned that wages are influenced by supply and demand in the labor market, and influence wages, right? So this can lead to very low incomes for some people and very high incomes for others. Poverty and income inequality are not the same thing, as poverty applies to the condition of people who cannot afford the necessities of life, while income inequality refers to the disparity between those with higher and lower incomes. The poverty rate is what percentage of the population lives below the poverty line, which the amount of income that it takes to purchase the necessities of life determines. Choosing a poverty line will always be somewhat controversial, but it's a tool that we have used so far to exactly identify how uh, incomes influences each household, and also how inequality it's often increasing disparity between the higher income and the lower incomes on society. As we know, more than poverty, what it is really important from the economic perspective is the income inequality. And so we check measurement and causes. Basically, measuring inequality involves making comparisons across the entire distribution of income, not just the poor. One way of doing this is to divide the population into groups, like quintiles, and then calculate what share of income each group receives. An alternative approach is to draw Lorentz curves which compare the cumulative income actually received to a perfectly equal distribution of income. Income inequality in the United States increased sustainably from the late 70s and early 80s into the 2000s. The two most common explanations that economists cite are changes in household structures that have led to more two-earner couples and single-parent families, and the effect of new information and communications technology on wages. Finally, the intention of government policies to reduce income inequality, it's another topic that is important. Policies that can affect the level of economic inequality include redistribution between rich and poor, making it easier for people to climb the ladder of opportunity. For example, estate taxes, where taxes on inheritances are a way to do so. Pushing too aggressively to economic equality can run the risk of decreasing economic incentives. However, experience noted that a moderate push for economic equality can end up with increasing economic output. So, government policies are important because those will let people to have greater opportunities, and they will reduce educational gaps, for example.